What's up, everybody? Welcome back to I Came with Fire podcast. There's a familiar face with a little bit more hair on it. Look at
Hello,
that.
it
It's
is
Zach.
it is me, the one, the
Zach, why don't you
only.
tell everybody where you've been, man?
I've been watching a spawn that my wife made. It's also known as a baby. Yeah, our
Spawn.
yeah, our daughter Senna
From
was
sperm to
born
spawn.
was born on 22nd January.
Mm.
So we kind of just been getting used to that, figuring it out. It's been pretty nice so far. I really enjoy being a father, and I like the 12 weeks of leave the Air Force gave me, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, that is pretty freaking dope, dude. When I had my first daughter, I only got 3 weeks.
Yeah, our
Yeah.
chief was his last name's also Smith too. Very very common. He was like,
No way.
he was like, yeah. Back when I had my first daughter, when I was like an airman, I only got like 7 days. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, it was back in like 90 something. I was like, okay.
Well, dads don't matter. Dads don't matter, so.
It's true. Don't need them. They don't
That's right.
facilitate or help in any way towards the growth of children. Not
That's
needed.
right. In no way, shape, or form, dude.
Nope.
Fuck them. Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
That's right. Well, ladies and gents, listening in, we have a return guest tonight. We've got Sino Talk, otherwise known as Joaquin. We'll call him Joaquin. And but we had him on last time to talk China stuff because he knows a lot about it, and we like listening. So, Sino, you want to do a quick little intro to remind everybody about you again, and new listeners who you are? Just let everybody know.
Yeah, so my name is Joaquin, aka Sino Talk, the person behind Sino Talk. So
Mhm.
I am a independent journalist slash analyst that specializes in the Indo-Pacific, but also China specifically. And I currently run the Indo-Pacific desk for Atlas News. So that was a recent development. So
That's awesome, man. How did you wind up doing that?
Man, it was kind of interesting because whenever I did it, it was me and the head of Atlas began talking because I began talking on his post or commenting on some of his posts about China or North Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And turns out that he was a big fan of the work I do. And, I was looking to move away from my Substack and go to a website because obviously my work is not loved by Instagram under any circumstances.
Yeah.
It's one of those
Dude, I
things.
know. It's even getting worse, dude.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of glad that I've made the switch when I did, because I know if I would have continued on my original route, it would have been just horrendous. Yeah, it would have been so bad. It would have not been good.
Nah, man.
Oh man.
Then they just changed their policy too, to where they said they are not going to push political stuff anymore, which is, totally makes sense for the election year, and they just don't want to hear certain people say certain things. But that's pretty wild because there's a ton of political shit on Instagram, so kind of fucking over a lot of people.
I think there is the reason why they actually did this for legal stuff, because it's like all of Meta said they're going to do. It's not just Instagram.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they're doing that because they don't want to be seen as a news agency, as like someone who actually reports news, even though like they're not. It's just people posting stuff. Because if they actually report news, then they fall under like different laws, and they don't want that from the United States. They want to stay like a private entity that can't be controlled. And if they start reporting news, then they have to like meet certain criterias and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I think they're just trying to avoid that entirely. So,
well, then maybe instead of censoring for the most part people that have political commentary, they should start taking down, things from Politico and CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and all the actual, mainstream media syndicates too, if they really want to prove that that's what they're going after. But it really seems to just be the little man out there doing his thing. And so they can say all what they want, their legal jargon, but 110%. I know that they're trying to keep shit as low as possible for what's coming up, so
Yeah,
they can say whatever they
I
want.
don't agree with what they're doing, but I understand why they're doing it. They're a big
Yeah.
corporation trying to circumvent laws and pinch pennies. So
Well, then they need to do it to the big guy too. That's for sure.
that's where they
So
make their most pennies.
sounds like some fucking bullshit to me. But anywho, we're here to talk about China, not Mark Zuckerberg, who is also interested in China, but for different reasons.
Isn't his wife like Chinese or something?
Well, yeah, that, and he did let the fucking CCP run a bunch of cables under the water and connect them to fucking San Francisco for a
So
long
pretty
time.
much on topic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude. You can't talk about Zuck without talking about China. So, but yeah, they kind of go hand in hand. But the first thing, man, I really wanted to talk about is let's get all serious now. Is this fucking $95 billion aid package, and first off, it's crazy the fear mongering that's come out afterwards. With Russian space nukes and sharks with laser beams on their foreheads. But the Taiwan and Indo-Pacific 8 billion that's going there. What are they hoping to bolster that isn't just the bottom line narrative they put out there for the official use?
I think for them is that they're trying to make sure that Taiwan actually has the stuff that it needs to defend itself. So it's a long line of, this is just the most recent in a long line of deals that they made, or at least past, for them to provide Taiwan with missile systems, weapon systems, munitions, things such as that. I think one of the big ones was that they were able to get like 50 JSOW, which doesn't really sound like much, but when you think about what they can do, like
What is
actually
that?
aim and JSOW is a long range, is a joint standoff weapon. So think about it, it's an air launched cruise missile. You can launch it.
Okay.
I want to say it's like 100 to 200 mile range, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or at least some of the variants that there are that's floating out there. It's pun intended.
Is it like an interceptor, or like what is it? What's it go to?
It's a legit precision guided munition. So it's like you launch it, it will go strike a target, and it destroys the target. Hopefully,
yeah.
So think of it as like the scalp in that the Ukrainians use, or the Storm Shadow, same thing, but the JSOW is less range, and so they gave them 50 of those, in which Taiwan's able to strike either shipping that China may use, or at the very least go in and conduct essentially suicide missions against key roadways and railways to knock out those MSRs that China would be using
back, knock down like bridges, roads, that type of stuff.
Porcupine Taiwan.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what is the average Taiwanese person's evaluation of all of this?
The deal, or the fact that Taiwan or China may be invading Taiwan?
Well, pretty much the U.S. like beefing them up and giving them an even bigger arsenal to help keep out China.
Well, it depends, like who you ask, because there's some Taiwanese who view it as a good thing, but then others just view it as, oh, well, they're just doing that just in case if they're not able to support us, because they may not do it, or we may not come to their aid during a China invasion or China conflict.
Yeah.
And so you see those two narratives, but then also underlying it is the fact that they know sooner or later China will possibly invade. They understand that, with China, it's not if they would invade, it's more of like a when, or a when, or if with caveats.
Right.
So because Taiwan knows that if they were to invade, it would cause, there's a lot of issues that could cause the entire invasion to go to literally fail, even in its first stages. And that would endanger Xi Jinping's hold on power and by extension, CCPs. So for Taiwan, so for the Taiwanese, they understand that they haven't, it may not occur, but then also never say never. So does that make sense?
Yeah, there's two things you said there that I kind of want to touch on. The first one you said is that like maybe the U.S. wouldn't come to their aid. Is that like an actual possibility? Is that something you think? Is the U.S. just, if like let's say tomorrow morning China just full sent it? Is there a possibility the U.S. just says, we gave you aid, good luck? Like we don't do anything kinetic on our end. We just say good luck and look the other way.
I think regarding that, it would depend largely upon the political climate and who's in charge. So with Joe Biden, if he wins, or anyone else within the Democratic Party that may succeed him or could succeed him, you will see, I could see them actually coming to their aid, coming to Taiwan's aid in some fashion. Now, on the flip side, with the Republicans clearly pointing towards Trump, that kind of makes people wonder, if he will go on, if he would let the United States intervene, or would he order the United States to intervene? And the reason why is because some of his comments that he made kind of hint at that he may not. And there are some other ones that kind of point that, it just depends upon what's on the ground or the conditions. But either way, it would really depend upon political climate within the United States or what administration is currently in power.
I guess my concern with that is like America's word. Like that's my biggest concern here is I could be wrong, and you can correct me if either of you know, but I don't think we have anything like written, like official doctrine that says that we will like defend Taiwan. I know a lot of like political leaders have said we will, but I don't think there's like any like treaty or like anything that says like yes that we will. Is there anything legally saying we will?
There's the Taiwan Relations Act that says we will give Taiwan the necessary aid that would.
Okay, so it's like vague. It's just like,
it's very,
I guess what would we equal? Because I know that in our agreements, like with Japan, if Japan takes any kinetic attack, we are supposed to defend them wholeheartedly because like we are their military. And I know Japan has agreements with Taiwan to where they will come to their aid if they get invaded. So I'm wondering if is it like a domino thing? Because if Taiwan gets invaded, Japan goes, hey, we're going to help you out. And then a Japanese fighter gets shot out of the sky or something by China. Then
like
Japan
World War
goes,
I powder keg all over again.
Yeah, and then Japan goes, hey, they kinetic us. Come kinetic with us. I don't know.
I mean, kinetic I don't katana. Think it would. So many kinetic actions, so little time.
Yeah, right.
Make decisions now.
No, I don't think. Right, we need a decision now. The nuke's already in the air. What nukes?
Oh shit!
Just accept it.
I meant nuke the leftover food.
We just threw Fukushima plant at them. We don't have nukes. We just threw the Fukushima plant at them.
Their Chinese are definitely afraid of that already. So,
right, but no, I think with Japan, you have to look in the context of right. They just released Godzilla on China and
Taiwan, but whatever.
Or Taiwan. Well, I mean. Either or, I guess, because like if you can't have an island if it's totally destroyed, I guess.
Exactly.
burn the ultimate burner, scorched earth policy.
Yeah.
But I think with Japan, you have to understand is they base their defense policy on pacifism,
Yeah.
meaning that they won't intervene. Now, of course, is that total? No. Matter of fact, we've seen a change, especially under Abai and now Kishida, pivot towards saying we might want to go ahead and get ready for the eventuality for China to do something.
Yeah, they're becoming offensive
Now,
again. Or
yes, they're relearning the old way.
Potentially offensive again. They're not doing offensive acts, but they're
proactive at least.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's one of the things that people should understand is that Japan won't really intervene on the side of Taiwan unless they have a compelling reason to do that. And if they can argue that it reaches if it fulfills the narrowly defined criteria under Article 9. You got to remember, Article 9 is enacted in a constitution that says, hey, we swore off all forms of warfare, offensive warfare.
Mm-hmm.
We will not do it. Originally, we want to let the United States go in and fight our wars for us, but then the United States realized that maybe we should let them rearm to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the self-defense force was born. And so now you see them actually evolving again to where it's almost like they're having a it's almost like they're having a military in all but name now. So essentially, if they ever wanted to, they could go ahead and vote on renaming the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force to the Japanese Navy or Japanese Air Force and Japanese Army.
As long as they bring that cool Navy flag back.
They still use that Navy flag, actually. Yeah.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's one of the most badass battle flags ever, dude.
That's the only historical military remnant of the Empire of Japan, still active.
Such a cool flag, dude.
In their government or whatever.
Actually, it's not.
It's not.
It's
not.
Like
no,
it's
no,
like the main one.
It's
Zach, let the professional tell us about it.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just reminded of this. Ironically enough, today when I was on Twitter, that wonderful social media app, and someone pointed out that it still boggles my mind that the Ministry of Defense, or I believe the Navy, the naval build, the Maritime Self-Defense building has a legit full-on portrait of Tojo.
Hell
and
yeah.
To where people would take pictures in front of. And I was like, yeah, I don't think no one's going to be liking that. And it was ironically enough when the Filipino Navy Chief of Staff was visiting. He was there just recently. And you'll see him and then, the tweet was it's still, it still boggles my mind. I don't even know if it's still up. So it could probably be taken down by now. So.
What was it? Where was it at?
It was at the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense building or the Defense Ministry. I forget which one. But you have to understand Togo was a admiral or a high-level Navy officer.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no.
Yeah. It doesn't pop up with there's one photo. It's a painting, but it kind of looks like it depicts the U.S. sailors as well. So probably not the same one.
They're not gonna let you find it, Brandon.
Probably not. Damn
it's
Google.
A top level. The Japanese Empire still exists. It's just like a shadow state. It's hidden. So.
No, forgive me. He was I apologize. He was an army. I apologize. That's on me.
Okay, got you.
So it probably was the Ministry of Defense, but the Maritime Self-Defense Force was meeting with his Philippine naval counterpart. So I apologize.
Yeah, no worries.
It's been a long day.
You're good, brother. So you feel like Trump is more of a Monroe Doctrine absolutist then?
I don't think he's so much as a Monroe doctrinist, more so than like a pragmatist who understands that we only conduct operations when we need to.
Mm-hmm.
And then also a serving of, if it's strokes his self-interest or ego, if you will.
Sure. Yeah.
There's that. And so what I mean by that is, going back to his comments about Taiwan, is always about the context. Oh, well, they took our semiconductor industry away. They've, they have that. What's the whole point of defending Taiwan when we don't get nothing out of it? Or, on the flip side, going to the Atlantic. Go ahead.
Isn't there like it's like a U.S. policy? It's like one of the ways to like prevent China from like getting the semiconductors is that the U.S. will just they'll blow it all up and then bounce. Like it's like a you can't have it, no one can, or like if we can't have it, no one can type thing.
I don't think it's a policy more so than like strategic planning on our end, because
that's what I meant by policy. I didn't mean like so policy. It's one of the war game ideas if China invades Taiwan. It's like if we don't think we could confront them or defeat them at that time or prevent them to actually get there, then we'll just blow them all up and then we'll retrograde, because the U.S. military never retreats. They always retrograde. We'll retrograde and then we'll regroup and come back later or something.
Mm-hmm.
No, you do make a good point, Zach, because the Taiwanese actually made a fit whenever, the idea.
Yeah, because I remember when that came out, Taiwan was like, "What? So you're not helping us?" I was like, "Oh no, we'll be back later. Just hold out for a couple weeks. We'll be back later."
Well, it was more. It wasn't the context of them holding out. It was more the context of what do we do to prevent China from getting hold of semiconductors.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be that context.
Well, they're building their own capability now as well, aren't they? Knowing full well that it could come to that.
Regarding China or the United States or Taiwan?
Well,
both.
I know that the United States is discussing doing that too and bringing some of that home. But the Chinese is who I'm talking about. So if they rely so heavily on TSMC.
Well, I think regarding that, China would rather not be beholden to TSMC or any other foreign company that's at the mercy of China or at the mercy of the United States, because they understand that, as pointed as, the semiconductor export control show, it may not be in their best interest strategically. And so now you see them actually trying to build up their semiconductor industry, which personally, I don't think a lot of the stuff that they talk about, like the wins that they have, are propaganda. I'm gonna be real honest with you. It's been proven that their latest, I forgot what it was, Huawei laptop, or one of the Chinese laptops that made a point to say, oh yeah, it has a Chinese produced microchips in it that made it extremely fast comparable to the stuff that we have in the West. When people actually looked into it, that wasn't so much the case as a SMIC produced chip, but a rebranded TSMC chip. And we actually have seen Chinese companies go out and buy literally any advanced chip that they could get their hands on, irregardless if it has any application towards AI or quantum computing, anything like that. Because, for example, China's actually been trying to buy up a lot of the advanced gaming chips that came out probably about 2 to 3 months ago or a month ago.
Right.
and
And
so they can
so
reverse engineer, right?
it's not so much
Or
reverse
just
engineer,
use
more
them.
so just use them, just be able
Okay.
to modify them for use.
Okay.
Because realistically, they don't really have the capability to manufacture chips, those comparable chips on scale. Can they
Yeah.
produce them? Yes. But it's one thing to be able to make, a dozen or like a wafer. I don't know
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're familiar with like a wafer. It's if you can if whereas it's one thing to do that. It's an
I just
entirely different thing to be able to make semi truckloads of them, semi truck
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
trailer trucks of them, like we can do.
Yeah. Right.
I'm just now envisioning in my mind like an ICBM missile brought to you by Ryzen or brought to you by
Oh
AMD
my God, dude.
or
Yeah.
Intel Core i7.
Verizon nuking the competition.
Literally.
Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
they wouldn't
Oh, that
publicly
would.
do it, but I know that like the U.S. or something. Because I know we do it now with like Russian missiles. There's actually Johnny Harris. I don't know if you watch him on YouTube or anything, but he did a thing where um, Russia is still somehow able to make like a ton of smart missiles and smart bombs, and um, but they have a bunch of what is it, sanctions on them where they're not supposed to be able to get the stuff. But what they do is they have like these fake companies in like Poland or other countries, and then they buy through there. And people, Ukraine is sharing the information with like the United States, and they're looking at some of these bombs, and they're like, "This is a jerry rig." It's kind of like that. It's like it's got all these different parts from like this is from like a microwave. This is from like a computer. This is from like a T94 calculator. This is, and they put it all together, and together it allows this missile to work like a smart missile. And they're like, this is so freaking weird. But I just imagine like a Chinese missile or whatever, looking at it, and it's got like a TI
PS5
84.
logo on it.
Yeah, it's got a PS5 logo inside. It's got like a it's got a Tesla symbol somewhere else.
The funny thing about that is, like, since you brought up the Russians sanctioned and they're able to
Yeah,
still
and how they're
get,
still getting stuff.
yeah, Taiwan actually came out and said, yeah, they're using fund companies to get access to these chips
Yeah, I assume
from a
China's doing the same
certain.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah, China actually is doing a lot of that stuff. Fun factoid: I may actually be connected to some of that stuff. Be able to locate them.
oh, it's kind of cool. Like the
Yeah.
like
So
the fake companies, or like you can track a chip gets sold from like the US to like some Poland enterprise and then it just disappears, or what are we talking about?
um, let's just say I'm able to. Let's just say I'm able to go in and dig around and find information about certain companies owned by certain individuals in a certain Asian company
Mm.
or Asian
Mm-hmm.
country that you could point to, say you're doing this, because you had to remember is that this country, which is this country has a long history of doing it, in which if you go on to justice.gov, you can quite easily find the press releases and figure who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But and this is what I always point out to people who, when they ask me. So we know that these companies use. We know these companies. They use these front companies
Right.
to get around sanctions, to be able to get access to certain stuff that they shouldn't otherwise be able to do. What makes them? What incentivizes them to actually do the same, to extend that to semiconductors? And this is like I tell these people, this is like I tell them, is the fact that the export controls themselves incentivizes China to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
they
where
need
there's a will,
to.
there's a way.
Yeah, exactly. And with that country, there is a really big will, and they understand the ways.
Yeah.
You would not be surprised. Exactly. Well, it's more like nationalism based, but it's still a will. And they have the ability through using previous methods to get what they want. Now, we made it harder for them to do so.
How so?
But well, the export controls, we pretty much made it a point to where any Western company that continues to do business with Chinese companies, you will get heavily sanctioned by the United States, and so that's the reason why you see NVIDIA, Samsung, Dell, IBM. They essentially said, "Nope, we're not even dealing with this. We're just going to wash our hands of the Chinese market, even though it's going to hurt us. But the fines that will be levied towards us will hurt us more." So
I do know in the last 6 months, the U.S. State Department was they created their own like office that's supposed to figure out. This is for Russia specifically. They're supposed to figure out who these front companies are, and they're supposed to skip a whole bunch of like, bureaucratic red tape or whatever to just like make it way quicker. But in the video I watched from Johnny Harris, it talked about like, yeah, it's quicker, but it still takes too long. And by the time you've annihilated that company, there's another one already up and running under the same name. It could even be the same company name with like an extra T in it. And it'll still take the State Department like another. They have to do it. A new process for every new one. You can't just like blanket one name. You can't just blanket one thing. It's like, because the international thing, it's like really, in the video he goes into way better detail than I'm explaining it, but it takes a long time to prove credibility and a whole bunch of other stuff. And they use generic names like Zach Smith. And it's like, okay, like good luck just banning every Zach Smith. Like that's not going to work. So like they're not idiots, but
it's like we've said before that the Chinese are really, really good at using everybody's bureaucratic bullshit against them.
Yeah, that's how China buys land in the U.S. They're just like, hey, we're going to buy this, and by the time we even know what's happening, you're like, wait, you have how many acres right next to our nuclear base? That's really weird.
Exactly.
How much Huawei shit? Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I
was saying, how much Huawei shit have you put in cell towers and run up the I-50 corridor between all of our nuclear installations?
Yeah,
exactly. And a lot of people, they make a big stink about, China bought, land, and then, they bought so much land here in the United States, and then the commentators or the people, their counter argument, well, it's just a small type of land. It's just a small amount of land. Like, it's not like they're, not like the Iranians. It's not like, I forgot the other group that was like bought a lot of land. But going back to what Zach said and what you said, Brandon, is the fact that locations, they may not buy a lot of land.
Yeah.
But
it's a very specific
spots. Where it's at.
Yeah,
exactly. It's one of those things in which Dave and you both hit it on it, that they use bureaucratic our bureaucratic system against us. Not only that, but they understand that politically this would be a hot button issue, and whenever you do hot button issues like this, when they become hot button issues like this, people usually become sensational. People usually sensationalize it, and that's what they hope to do, to drown out the truth.
Well, they're using our immigration process against us right now. They send like tens of thousands of Chinese people just right across the border. They immediately like burn or destroy their passports, and then they say, "I need asylum from China or whatever." And the process for the U.S., because we've had a Border Patrol guy on, he says, "Yeah, if it looks reasonable and they're not like active criminals, then we give them a phone, we give them a court date that's like months to years out, and then they're just allowed to be in the US. And it's like the Chinese know this, and I'm not saying every Chinese person illegally crossing the border is a Chinese spy, but there's at least one. Like, I promise
yeah.
there's at least one, and there's probably more than one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there's at least one. There's probably more than one, but I can promise to all the listeners and viewers, there's at least one Chinese spy who went across that border. So and they're just using the process. Just what I'm getting at is they use our own process against us because we're America, we're nice, we're humane, we care about all this stuff. They use our nicety against us all the time.
Well, I mean, regarding the massive surge, you have to look at this is the fact that the reason why you see entire families make the Darien Gap trip from Ecuador and Colombia through there and into Mexico is because realistically that's all they have. They're fleeing. Essentially, they're fleeing Mexico. They're fleeing China because these people are. I wouldn't call them outright economic refugees. I would say that they've ran out of hope regarding the Chinese economy and the way everything is going in China.
So you think a hefty portion are people actually just seeking a better life because they know that the Chinese... Okay. I could see that too. And I think Zach is kind of hitting on that.
I agree with that. But the Chinese government is definitely using the large influx. And there's definitely people coming through that aren't friendly.
Plus the sale of the things you need to make fentanyl. So
yeah.
Exactly. I think regarding that, I mean, yes, they would, but they also know that we will investigate. The United States government would, or at least the customs or immigration authorities. A lot of people are surprised by how thorough the investigations are regarding Chinese citizens who want to become an actual U.S. citizen. They get investigated. It's almost like going through. It's almost like getting a top secret clearance or TSSCI. And if you say that you're a Communist Party member, that's not necessarily a disqualifying factor, but is ironically enough a really big red flag.
Yeah. I did have an applicant. He was a Chinese American. His mom was American. His dad was Chinese. And he was trying to join the Air Force. He eventually did, but it did take a year because the jobs he wanted were top secret. And they were like, but you're Chinese. And so they were like really looking into his stuff. And they combed through everything. And they found family members extended family members in China that he didn't even know about. That like his family didn't even know about. And they were like, who are these people? Have you ever talked to them? And they super went into it. He didn't get his top secret security clearance because apparently one of his family members was like a Communist Party member and was like high enough in the like government. I don't know how high, but apparently they were fairly high. So he still joined the Air Force. He serves honorably and everything to this day. I still talk with him, but he didn't get a top secret and he didn't get his intel job that he wanted. But yeah, it is pretty extensive. They comb through a lot.
And another red flag I would say is that the PLA, if they were a member of the PLA. Now, granted, it's a largely conscripted quote unquote system, so they the United States government, they understand that you had to do your time, but they're still going to look at you. So there's also that aspect.
I think one of the things in listening to you guys kind of talk back and forth about this that disturbs me the most is just how bureaucratic of a giant the United States is and how slowly moving everything is.
Oh yeah.
The United States projects power very slowly anyway. And just how slow, bureaucratic nonsense makes it is yet to be seen, especially nowadays, mobilizing against a peer enemy. But I fear genuinely that there will be too much, and the giant that we could be without it will not be able to stand up before we even get a chance to fight, you know. And it's a pretty scary thought to know just how slow the United States is getting anything done. And almost it's just like we're a paralyzed state sometimes when it comes to the bureaucracy.
It's like fighting with a hand behind our back.
Both of them, honestly, man.
Yeah, we're headbutting people.
Yeah.
Right. It's one of those things in which, I always quote this one individual, this one professor, when a classmate of mine, back when I was in college, when he asked the same question, like, why does it take the United States government or any government at any level months to do something? And, the professor paused because looking back, he understood his answer was going to boggle the minds. But the length of time it takes actually means the system is working.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's thorough.
Because
the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
The bureaucracy slows things up too that shouldn't pass, and allows for the review process of things that deserve it. It's just unfortunate that it happens when things are really needed too. And I think the United States in this scenario, every time we talk about this, the United States is certainly playing defense for the most part, and just developing ways to combat the Chinese, because they're very much dictating the battle space in a lot of different ways the United States had to adjust to. But if China decides to invade Taiwan, obviously they're not going to let a bunch of bureaucratic crap get in the way, because it will have been planned out for a long time and execute, just all that they need to do to what they think they need to do to take over Taiwan. But how much do you see that the United States really would go on the offense to prevent that, if any, other than just giving Taiwan massive amounts of money and missile defense systems and ammo?
I think it will be extremely hand-tied, considering that we don't want to be looked at or seen as the aggressor. The president, the Secretary of Defense and State, and the National Security Council would likely impose severe right and left criteria to say, under these specific circumstances, if these don't hit the very specific wickets, you cannot conduct an attack against Taiwan. Now, does that mean no attacks? No. I mean, special forces exist for a reason.
Definitely.
I was going to say special forces exist for a special reason. Yeah.
I've always thought that, like, if we actually were, like, war to war against China, we would never have conventional, like, troops on Chinese land, like, ever. You'd have, like, special forces or, like, people going maybe in there to, like, destroy a key thing.
Maybe after it was over.
Yeah, there'd be like missiles going in there to destroy stuff. I don't think there would ever be like an amphibious assault of China or like anything like that. It would be push them out of Taiwan.
Marines hitting the beachhead.
Yeah, it'd be push them out of Taiwan, hold Taiwan, keep naval stuff that China has out of the immediate area, clear the skies. But there would never actually, I don't think there would be even our aircraft flying into Chinese airspace. I can see missiles going in there, but I don't think there would be.
I think there would be, but maybe not from where you think there would be.
You think from like the
people forget China. People forget China has a western border. Yeah, let's put it that way.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think the U.S. would be pretty. Or I would hope the U.S. wouldn't think, let's go occupy China. Like, that'd be so stupid. Because, like, any land you take, like, there has to be a strategic reason. Then you have to hold. Yeah, you have to hold. And I don't think this conflict would lead to the U.S. thinking, oh, we can topple the Chinese government and build our own. Or, oh, we can cause the revolution. Like, I would hope we wouldn't do that. I would hope we would just smack them real hard, do a big old no, eliminate a lot of their ability to retaliate effectively, at least on us. They could probably still retaliate like locally, and then kind of be like, "Hey, come to the negotiating table before we mess you up again," or something. That's what I would hope we do.
There would be some serious and heavy U.S. involvement in China if something like that went down, where they tried some shit and they ended up losing effectively. I think that there would be some pretty heavy-handed U.S. influence sitting right there in Beijing, for sure.
It would be.
But yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, man. No, I want you look like you want to make a point and then have a question kind of about this, but from a different angle.
No, I mean, like, I was just going to touch upon what Zach said about like landing on
Mhm.
China, or you
Mhm.
and Zach said. I don't think we'll be that stupid. I think that would be the best word to describe that
Fair.
type of planning, or that type of operation.
Yeah.
We would do amphibious raids, and those certain types of raids. And as soon as we get done just achieving those objectives, and we will withdraw. We
Mhm.
wouldn't occupy because
Yeah.
one, it more likely won't fit our strategic objectives, and then secondly, it's stupid to try to invade China and try to hold the
Yeah.
land or try to hold any territory. It's stupid because
We
you're
certainly
on.
have should have learned that over the past 20 years, that's for sure.
It's true. It's one of those things in which we've, if we do try it, we would either end up losing those troops, or China would just be reinvigorated, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
because you have
Yeah.
foreign soldiers on Chinese soil, and they
Kind of like
can
what the
use that.
Japanese did with their civilians during World War II. You know what I mean? Amping them up and to the child fighting Americans. Coming ashore. I mean, Jesus, we're still using we still issue the Purple Hearts today that were made for the invasion of Okinawa. Like, that's crazy that they
Mm-hmm.
expected that many people to die. That you're handing out Purple Hearts today from that. That's
Oh,
incredible.
it was going
But
to be wasn't it going to be like millions? It was like
what
some
was their justification
crazy
for dropping the
high
sun
number.
twice on them?
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
and I remember them saying that it was like it would have taken like years. Like it wouldn't have been like a easy simple like you're talking more
Yeah,
year
no.
like several more years of that war
Who
going
knows,
on.
bro? Yeah, who knows?
Ugh.
yeah. And
Yeah,
even then, would they even bow down?
yeah, exactly. But so what I was going to ask is essentially how much this election for in Taiwan this year seemed to go well, but not as perfect as it could have been. Would you agree?
Yeah, I I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
There's William Lai uh, did as well as he could have done.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, if we would have thought the KMT would have won, or the TDP would have won, then I'm sorry. Neither side was as popular as Lai. And then not only that, but both have baggage
Mm-hmm.
regarding their campaign or their party's platform that kind of made it iffy, and if they were going to actually be able to compete effectively with Lai, which turns out was true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, regarding the legislative elections, that could have went better with the KMT,
Mm-hmm.
for the KMT, but former President Ma, essentially saying we should really listen to Xi. That guy really has some great ideas. We should really listen to him.
Totally.
Like, right? And it's like he said this, I on the 9th, 8th or 9th, January 8th or 9th, and the election was held on January 13th, and everyone was kind of surprised that he said that they allowed him to say that.
Mm-hmm. That is
It
pretty
was
shocking.
funny. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of funny. Someone said, like, I kind of wish I could be the KMT presidential candidate's be a fly in his office, because he must have been pissed.
I'm sure.
Because, oh yeah, even with DW only releasing parts of the interview, the least inflammatory parts of the interview, or at least perceived as such, it kind of resulted in the KMT performing worse than expected.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was actually projecting the KMT to actually outright have a majority in the House, but they barely
Right.
got enough seats to where um, to where they would just need the TDP to, some of their people to, join
In
uh, and occupy the House
in what
or the legislative
facets would
yuan.
that right? In what facets would that present the most difficulty for Lai for having a minimum majority?
I think for him, he would have to get he would have to work with the KMT to get stuff passed.
Mm-hmm.
And that means he would have to water down a lot, or at least try to compromise on a lot of the stuff that that the DDP wants to pass, especially if it involves increasing relationships with the United States, especially the United States, or foreign powers, in which that was something that the DDP wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
William Lai could be seen as a prison-size third term, if you will,
Okay, that's a good way to
because
put that.
yeah, he's going to essentially continue on with that, continue on with her policies, and whether the KMT likes it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But they could be an inhibiting factor.
Right. How much do you feel the Chinese interfere in their elections? Because you would think it would be in the Chinese interest to have the political weight there in Taiwan to say, hey, look, this is what the people in Taiwan want, and then take over without firing a shot.
Oh, they tried.
Mm-hmm.
There's been actual evidence. The Taiwanese actually produced evidence that showed Chinese linked linked groups, but then also some Chinese linked individuals, um, pay certain individuals to
Mm-hmm.
promote false narratives. Not only that, but they found that a lot of the TikTok influencers on Taiwan actually spread pro KMT messages in the weeks leading up to the campaign. And then
Mm-hmm.
finally, you did see a massive increase in the Chinese government's efforts to get a lot of these low level neighborhood city officials to go on all expense paid trips to China, the Fujian
Mm-hmm.
province.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And so there was. And even then, I want to say Wang Wenbin, foreign ministry spokesperson, the sad
Mm-hmm.
duck, as I like to call him.
The
Um,
sad duck. I love it.
yeah, I mean, he just looks like a sad duck. I don't know why, but he just looks like a sad duck to me.
Maybe that's the image I'll
He came
use.
just use a sad duck, or
Yeah,
it's
right.
like what?
Yeah, perfect.
No, it would be no, but he came out and said, "Well, we hope the Taiwanese population make the correct decision in electing in the upcoming elections." And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
thinking, this kind of illustrates the CCP's lack of understanding upon any election. Like,
That's kind of
you
weird.
just can't. Yeah, you just he said that a couple of weeks, or the week of the election.
Is
And I
that
was
just
just
like
thinking,
cultural differences between the Chinese and the Taiwanese that they don't really have an understanding?
no, it's a CCP understanding.
Okay,
They just don't care.
got you.
They've Yeah, it's nothing cultural. I mean, like, that's one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that it's one of the reasons why China hates Taiwan so much, is because it actually counters their argument that the Chinese culture is incompatible with democracy and multi-party elections.
Fair enough.
Taiwan does it.
Yeah. You brought up TikTok. It kind of made me think. How much do you think it has, if any, sort of influence over Taiwanese youth who would be voting like relatively soon with
It
the
has a lot of
pro-Chinese
influence.
stuff? Does it?
Has a lot of influence.
Is there? Yeah.
I was going to say, does that influence translate into gains in China with China?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
It's one of those things in which you have to. The only measurable effects would be whenever those kids come up with voting age. But even then, they have other influences that counteract that.
I was more wondering because, like, obviously, American politicians are very concerned with TikTok and the effect it has on American kids, especially when it comes to like pro-communist Chinese, propaganda, Russian propaganda, whatever, stuff like that, and then just like the genuine dumbing down of American culture. But I was just wondering if Taiwanese politicians held some of the same sentiment that it's it degrades Taiwanese independence essentially.
They do, but in an aspect of they understand that Taiwan or that China uses TikTok and Douyin, both versions exist on the island. They use this as part of their greater information influence operations to gain influence. So they understand that for them, it's a practical influence. It's not so much as dumbing down the Taiwanese youth. It's more of trying to influence them to become more pro-Chinese.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to jump into as well is not that long ago you put an article out about China's cyber threat. It was like how hackers could disrupt the United States in a war. I was wondering if you could just run over some of the key elements in that and what is, I guess, the United States should be most concerned about. And if the Chinese are like that far ahead of us as far as their cyber warfare abilities, because the United States definitely publicly expresses that they feel that way.
Do you mean the one where the United States released a report along with the Five Eyes Alliance saying that? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Yeah, that was one of the things in which a lot of people were surprised about, but from my perspective, we're just finding about this now. I mean, it's good that we found out that these groups tunneled their way into these various critical infrastructures now. Then
what groups could you elaborate a little bit more specifically? Like what groups and infrastructures that they're tunneling into?
So the main one that was referenced extensively throughout the report was Volt Typhoon, in which that one was a PLA, I believe a PLA connected group that conducted a lot of those attacks, a lot of those operations to not only enter the infrastructure of, when I say critical infrastructure, it's solar, some solar, some utilities, electricity, water treatment plants. I want to say they did try to do there was some nuclear. I want to say there was some nuclear. Water, telecommunications, communications, the transportation, specifically the airplane. I forgot what it's called. The civilian side of the radar network.
Okay.
Not NORAD, but the civilian, what the FFA or air traffic controllers use to guide aircraft within U.S. airspace. So they use that. So they got into that. But not only that, but what was most concerning was the fact that they stayed there for as long as they did. Because some of them were there for over 5 years, adapting on how to best destroy these systems. Now, the United States said they got them all. Did they? We
Probably
don't know.
not, honestly.
I agree. And not only that, the reason why it turned into a Five Eyes report is because it wasn't outright said in the report, but it was heavily hinted at that our Five Eye allies may have also found similar traces in their in their critical infrastructure,
right?
Which doesn't surprise me at all, because China, out of all the alliances that China hates, they hate the Five Eyes the most.
Right. Can you elaborate on the Five Eyes? I know it's United States, MI6. I'm trying to think some of the other ones that the Canadian Special Service as well, isn't it? Remember the other ones?
Yeah. So the Five Eyes is an intel sharing agreement between United States, Canada, our northern hat, our most cherished ally, the UK, our ally in the Southern Pacific, Australia, and New Zealand.
Right. Okay.
And so it's involves that one. It's very extensive. I believe it's the first one ever created, or the intel sharing of that magnitude ever created, for the first one.
Right.
And so essentially what that does is that you have an intel sharing agreement covering almost the entire hemisphere. It does the entire globe. And they do a lot of stuff together. We're very close.
Most definitely. I know that one of the things I read about that they're super concerned is that the United States still has agencies that are running like XP software, and which is incredible when you think about it. I mean, I fucking was living at home when I had Windows XP on my fucking computer, and I'm 37. Yeah, dude. But how much of that do you think is just complete and total negligence on behalf of the United States versus Chinese craftsmanship? You know what I mean?
I want to say 50-50.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap.
When I say negligence, it's just the fact that we don't want to upgrade our systems.
Mm-hmm.
We got to remember the air traffic control network we use dates back from the 60s or 70s, I believe. And so we're using very antiquated software and systems running that. And China was able to literally go in and say, I'm home.
Yeah.
So you have that. And then not only that, but then, you have people who don't necessarily care about cybersecurity, or at least place not as much of an emphasis that they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
You have that aspect. And then you also have people who don't really much care. It's just empathetic. They just don't care.
No, I mean, I definitely have seen the I don't care aspect. There's a lot of apathy when it comes to cybersecurity in general, which is mega unfortunate, because as much as I know that eventually, if something ever were to happen, there would definitely be a kinetic piece. The cyber piece is going to be what happens first. It'll just be a total fucking shutdown of a lot of different things. But
the cyber stuff is scary. I don't think people realize, like, a cyber, like, if a simple cyber attack hits and you now can't use your credit or debit cards,
exactly,
like you instantly are worrying if you have enough money to buy food, like, tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of Americans today don't have cash. I don't have cash. Like, I hardly ever carry cash. So, like, I'm gonna be one of those Americans that if, like, I can't use a debit or a credit card for like a week, like, I'm screwed. And there's a lot of Americans the same thing. And that's just a simple cyber attack that could very easily happen and just knock it all down. Like, that's super scary.
I will give you to further illustrate what you say, Zach. A lot of people forget this little wonderful 4th of July movie called Die Hard, Die Free or Die Hard.
Oh, I have not seen that one, bro. I gotta admit, maybe I just lost my man
Die
card.
free or
But
die hard?
live free or
I-
die hard.
Oh,
Right.
Live Free or Die Hard. Yeah.
I actually, so this came out in 2007. I haven't seen this one.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen this one. You're gonna have to fill me in, Joaquin.
Yeah. So the whole premise of that one is the second to last movie in the Die Hard series starring Bruce Willis. And the whole thing about that is they did a major cyber attack on 4th of July to steal money.
Okay.
Matter of fact, to steal money, I believe money or stocks from the stock exchange when when it gets sent to a special location, just in case this happens, like a backup. It backs it up.
Right.
And so during that time, you had a lot of chaos. Chaos ensued in the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia area.
Mm-hmm.
And also throughout the eastern seaboard as well.
Mm-hmm.
That happened on that, it's a movie.
Yeah.
But the fact that someone thought about that and did it,
right,
and were successful, should be kind of a
programming.
concern. Exactly. Not only that, but John H. Crane's, I don't know if you've seen his artwork on Instagram. He illustrates, going back to what Zach said, he illustrates what happens when people. He illustrates how fragile it is. J.H. Crane, how fragile our society is held up, our modern convenience infused society.
It's so fragile, isn't it? Like I remember like during the COVID, everyone's freaking out because are you gonna get enough goods at certain places? Because isn't like every major city like only has like 3 days worth of like stockpile or whatever, and like if they don't get restocked within like 72 hours, then there's just nothing, like no food.
Who knows if that's even accurate too?
I mean, it was. I bet that's fairly close or fairly accurate. I bet it's like 3 days and like a city's brought to its knees if it doesn't get resupplied.
Oh no, I agree with that. I mean, how accurate do you think it is that they actually maintain those supplies and don't just pencil whip that shit?
Oh, it's definitely like, oh, we have rice and beans back there too. Like that's what it is. It's not like for 3 days you can keep eating Taco Bell. Like that's not
Grandpappy's K rations back here.
Yeah. Because you know the second a big hack happens or whatever, there goes all the toilet paper again, there goes all the baby formula, there goes all the water.
First, dude,
it's gonna be gone like instantly.
Well, since we're on the fucking topic, I mean, Jesus, there's this whole thing going on right now about Russian space nukes and the Soyuz 2 rocket that went up not that long ago, and they just convened, what is it called? The almost said Elite Eight, but it's not fucking college basketball. The Gang of Eight, and to talk about it, and pushed out that national security threat and made a big deal about it for a few hours, freaking everybody out. But worrying about sending this into space and using a Russian hypersonic nuke to blow up in low Earth orbit over the United States and creating an EMP. That would be, you wouldn't even have to use a cyber attack. And obviously like a nuclear attack is totally different than a fucking cyber attack, but that would be everything. I mean, even your fucking grandpa's pacemaker is going out the fucking window and that's it,
Yeah, your car ain't starting, nothing's working.
Yeah.
No. I found something. I was trying to find a time where it happened. There was so in 2013, March 2013, North Korea did a huge cyber attack against South Korea, and it knocked out their entire banking system for 3 days. and a lot of people are freaking out. And South Korea, to remedy it, did like a mass like currency like release. So you could go to like the banks, and it was like an IOU system. It was like, how much money do you think you have? And they
How
would give
chaotic
you.
was that?
It apparently like was
Very.
really bad for the economy for like years. It took like South Korea years to like rebound.
Jesus.
But like it like messed a lot of stuff up, and they said that South Korea government was just quick to like fix the issue. They, instead of like thinking maybe it would be like okay, they just immediately were like, hey, get everyone cash like ASAP. And so they just gave everyone cash as quickly as possible so people could still buy and do stuff. But that's wild.
Because it's one of those things in which during that time, the reason why they did that is because one, South Korea feared that of it obviously going to shit, massive unrest going around. But then not only that, but the fear that North Korea would take advantage of that and just start doing stupid stuff. So you also have that to take into account. This is the reason why they did the Oprah approach.
Yeah, you get $10,000.
You get one.
You get $10,000.
Right.
Face all back later.
How much do you think this whole thing about the Russian space nuke thing, I feel like is something that we've probably known about for a while, just because I know there's a lot of different ways to detect nuclear signatures, and the US isn't bad at that. But how much do you think the Chinese want to have that sort of capability, or if they already have it in space?
I wouldn't be too surprised if they've thought about getting that similar capability.
Mm-hmm.
They probably thought of how bad it would be, not only for them, but not only for the United States, but for us, for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to understand is that the nuclear warhead in space, allegedly, is designed to destroy satellites.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever they needed to, flip a switch, and
they can knock out a ton of
goes all the
satellites.
Mm-hmm. And
but
not only that, but
I'd be willing to bet that that's what
this is for. Not only that,
Let me share something.
Yeah, it's.
That's what is it? This one? Yeah.
Try to get up on screen.
Yeah, I bet that's what this is for. The X-37B.
Why do you think that, Zachary?
Because this is a very, very top secret, nice little thing. It goes up into space, low or high orbit or whatever, for years at a time. It apparently, like, a lot of people don't know anything about this. And there's a reason for that. The running theories that I've recently seen and that I've heard about in like years past is that it's very maneuverable in space, and it can like dock and connect to other satellites. And it's very, very, very unique.
So how is it going to prevent a nuke though from blowing up? Like,
I'm willing to bet that the whole...
Or is that not the point?
I think the whole idea of this X-37B is probably just the U.S. testing its ability to connect to things in space relatively quickly, or having stuff up there that can connect to stuff. And you were saying that, the U.S. more likely probably can detect nuclear stuff up there.
Oh, we can. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So all different kinds of...
I'm willing to bet that the U.S. used this to test the ability, knowing that there might be a Russian space nuke, that this thing, while it's up there, or another one that's up there, they don't even know how many of these they have. They think there's always one up in space, that it could intercept, deactivate the nuke maybe before it can be used. Or maybe it's in its own way, it's like a jammer. Like you can't get the signal to the nuke because this is too close to it. That's it.
Maybe it fucks its guidance system off and shoots it off to Mars.
Yeah, or to the sun. Increase the sun's life by 0.0001 seconds.
Elon Musk's dream come true because a nuke hits the fucking surface of Mars and completely and totally restarts the greenhouse effect, and then now you can, something like that.
But
don't
do
that.
Okay.
This
It will literally, he would literally be like, I can finally recreate man in my own image. And I'm like, no,
Dude, he probably would
please
try.
God, no.
implants.
He already put
Yeah.
a fucking chip in somebody's brain. So
Yeah.
But something I'll say real quick about the I guess the Russian nuke in space. I think it's funny they were freaking out about a potential Russian nuke in space. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
of course they would do that. Like that makes sense. But we're also the United States of freaking America. You don't think that we probably haven't done it or are
dude,
doing
I
it?
would not put a
Or
fucking thing past the U.S. government, dude.
and there was
Yeah.
there's like that theory or idea of the thing called rods of gods or
Mhm.
rods of God, where there's like the
What if
U.S.
that's real?
put okay, it was thought about. It was in a Call of Duty game. It exists. Like,
It gotta be, dude. Gotta be.
I promise you, it exists. You can take it to the bank, take it to the South Korean bank when they're giving you your cash in 2013. I promise you
It's
that
very simple life.
there's that's a thing because one, it wouldn't be nuclear, so it'd be harder to detect. It could
all
just look
kinetic
like
energy.
a normal satellite in space, and you could put a
it's an
lot of them up
asteroid.
there. Yeah, you're literally just launching giant tungsten rods at space. Has the destruction of a nuke, no fallout,
No fallout.
and you can pinpoint
Oh,
it.
yeah.
You
How-
can drop it anywhere you want. You just drop it and let gravity do the work. It's eco-friendly for the liberals.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Totally. That's a
Love
pretty
it.
cool fucking idea. I'm not gonna lie.
it's not an idea. It's a thing.
Oh, okay.
It
I take that
exists.
back. Yeah.
The thing.
No, one of the things I always wonder about is just the Chinese economy obviously is falling apart. They're fucking pulling chips out of fucking PlayStation 5s and Xboxes and shit. But the narrative essentially is that the Chinese are just have surpassed us technologically, and I'm sure that they have in some ways, just being real. But for you, Joaquin, how much time you spend reading about this? How much do you really think the Chinese are ahead in technology? And if so, what areas specifically do you think?
They're ahead of us in EVs, but
Okay.
that's only because they
You mean
did a national
electric
effort.
vehicles?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
electric vehicles.
Okay.
And the only reason why is because,
Do they have all the
they've
mines?
did a massive it's really fascinating that they chose that to put in all their effort.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the reasons why, but they've essentially put in all their effort to build out a supply system to support the EV version of our automotive revolution here in the United States, the 1930s through 1950s, but it was more concentrated. And so now you see a lot of those car manufacturers expanding in Latin America, Brazil, in Europe, Hungary, in which now you have people panicking, especially in Europe, worrying that they're going to start dumping cheap Chinese EVs here or there, which they're going to do it. They can't stop it, but they can't stop it, but it's going to happen. I think another one will be green energy because, again, they've mobilized whatever's left of their economy to go into that. And again, it's because to gain influence, just like with the EVs, because it's eco-friendly.
Right. Meanwhile, burning coal.
Ignore the fact. Exactly. I think another one would be the hypersonic missiles.
Okay.
They've actually beat us and the Russians on actually having a legitimate hypersonic missile capability. So that's one of the things that I.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that that definitely. I remember, what are they, maybe 2020 or 2021, the Chinese launched one that circumnavigated the world and came back and hit a target. It said Though the U.S. intel community said it wasn't very accurate, didn't actually hit the target they were intending on hitting. But
Get a nuke on it. How close you got to be?
yeah, I also think hypersonic nukes is kind of a dumb idea, and I can explain that too. But um, I mean, like the glide vehicles themselves are hypersonic anyway on their way in. But um, no, more like obviously the Dongfeng, like 17 and 21, those are hypersonic anti-aircraft carrier missiles and stuff like that. But the United States does seem to be catching up a little bit. Do you come upon that in your research as well, like the Arrow program and some of these other like surface to air things? Obviously, we have like air to air capability too, but
No, I think they are. And I think it's because the United States understands that this is a major gap we need to fill.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, does that mean that it's going to ultimately work? Maybe, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
So it's time will tell, but at least we're in the right direction to actually improving upon it.
Yeah. I have seen some pretty promising stuff, and when we had Marcus Freitas on a while back, he was talking about it too. And the United States, I guess, is having quite a bit more success than we used to, and it's one of these things that, and I hate bringing him up for certain reasons, but Alex Hollings' Sandbox page, one of the things he made a point one time talking about was the Chinese essentially won the newspaper race about hypersonics because they're the first to yield it, and it looks good in the papers. But essentially, the effectiveness, efficiency, and type, and the multiple types of hypersonics, the United States absolutely is on pace to eventually take over that, and it will be again not even really close. But then again, who knows? But one can hope, I guess. So but I want to elaborate real quick on why I think hypersonic nukes are dumb. Because why does it fucking matter if you have a nuke coming at me that's hypersonic when all mine are in the air anyway? We're all fucking vapor in 5 minutes anyway. You know what I mean? So like, if your nuke makes it to Nebraska 2.5 minutes before mine makes it to Beijing or fucking Minsk, like, we're all dead anyway, dog. Like it feels like a waste of money to invest in something. Like if I was going to build hypersonic missiles, that would be the last hypersonic missile I would make, is one that's nuclear capable.
I guess my thought process behind it is, if they're sending all their nukes, yeah, why would they even be like hypersonic? But if like Russia's talked about using like strategic nukes, right? And I'd be willing to bet like China's thinking the same thing. The U.S. says, "Oh, we won't use them as like an offensive tool. We'll only use them as like a last resort, whatever." We either do, we don't. It doesn't matter. But like, what I was getting at is, isn't China toying with the idea of having hypersonic nukes because they could get a missile to an aircraft carrier strike group, eliminate the whole thing before the strike group even knew it was coming? And so that's where it's like I'm not thinking they would shoot them at like the US per se. They would
you're
like one or two. You just lost two carrier strike groups. What's next, bruh? Like, but I think the US would be like, "Oh, you want to know what's next? 200 nukes." But like, there's the.
I think we'd be able to catch that shit in the fucking air before that happened. But yeah, that is definitely the thought process.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about China using hypersonics,
our missile
to
defense
destroy...
system though isn't like only 50% accurate currently, or like that's what's publicly known. Like our ability to intercept like another missile, like a nuclear.
Are you talking about like maritime missile defense? Or are you talking about like the United States' version of the Iron Dome?
The maritime one. It's like where we could actually hit a missile on its way
to know better about that than me, that's for sure.
I remember seeing recently it's like 50%. I know the one around the United States is like 95 or like it's high. Like something could still get through.
It's crazy.
But the I'm pretty sure like maritime it's like 50%. Like it's not
what do you
good as we thought. I'll see if
I think regarding that, it would be around that number, because you have to understand is, it takes a lot of the things to target a moving aircraft or
Yeah, yeah.
a moving target. And it
Mm-hmm.
works both ways if you're moving in conjunction with the target as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then not only that, but you also have to understand is that China would use hypersonics, just conventional hypersonics, to
Mm-hmm.
target aircraft carriers. They won't. That's the
Yeah.
reason why they've developed the ballistic missiles.
Mm-hmm.
They just figured, attach some hypersonics, make it hypersonic, so that they can
Yeah.
make it
Yeah,
harder to hit.
the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation says that the maritime system is effective about 55% of the time, and the land base is effective at least 90% of the time.
A lot more factors at sea, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, how much read into are you on some of these upgrade that like the Navy's getting for like their Zumwalt class and some of the other radar things that the Navy's trying to update to be able to compete with these?
By the way, real quick, that 55% is if the U.S. shoots 3 interceptors per warhead.
Oh shit. Okay.
So they have to send 3 per to have a 55% of stopping it.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah,
right?
It's a lot of things in the air.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
It's like accuracy by volume.
Yeah.
Accuracy by volume. Yeah.
Just throw rocks.
Right.
So
What about
everything.
the upgrades though? Like how much have you really read any of that like to speak on it or?
I haven't really read anything about the Zimwalt because, from my perspective, we're turning that one to essentially a magazine or a missile ship
Mm-hmm.
because the shells are just too expensive to launch, essentially.
Yeah.
But the radars, from what I understand, is that they're trying to enhance they're trying to enhance the radar's ability to not only locate but to process the data
Mm-hmm.
for use in targeting.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever you do that one, you have to look at is other systems, can they do that? And so yes, they're first upgrading the radars,
Mm-hmm.
the Aegis radar.
Mm-hmm.
That's more likely going to be the first step, and them actually increasing, improving upon the missile system, maybe
Mm-hmm.
developing a new missile system, maybe developing a laser system to destroy the missiles that they come in. So
Dude.
realistically, the radars would be the first
Space
step.
lasers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That directed energy weapon that the Navy was developing not that long ago. Do you know like how much of that is part of the defense plan? Do you know?
I don't really know about that one, and I think it's because I know that it's installed on some aircraft or on some vessels, but
Right.
I think that's more along the lines of point defense against ships and
Okay.
certain munitions,
Like vessel to
now
vessel kind of thing.
yeah, or more like vessel to vessel.
Okay.
But the new systems that are coming out now, especially what the British show they can do, those will actually be brought online to actually take out higher end munitions like drones and also slow moving cruise missiles.
What exactly is the British system?
I forgot what it was. It's I only got a passing glance on it, but it was used to take out. Okay, I know it was used to take out a lot of the Houthi missiles that they were launching, and I was really impressed.
Got you. Yeah,
Because
no,
usually,
okay. That would make sense. The Dragonfire laser, is that one we're talking about here?
I think so.
Gov.uk
It sounds
this.
familiar.
Yeah. This is on the UK's government website. It says during a trial, mods Hebrides range Dragonfire laser directed energy weapon. System achieved UK's first high power firing of a laser weapon against aerial targets. The range of Dragonfire is classified, but its line of sight weapon can engage with any visible target. Okay, this is pretty sick looking, dude. Well,
Yeah.
Zach, you want to? You're more advanced than me at putting shit up on screen. You want to find it for us real fast, bro?
Yeah, what was it called again? The Dragonfire
It is.
what?
Dragonfire LDEW, laser directed energy weapon. Dragonfire. I'm surprised the British didn't use something like Draken, just to throw back some medieval roots, Cheerio.
Right.
It says
He's
it has
all
to be
nice,
in view. I wonder if like clouds mess that up.
That's a good question.
So.
This is a cost of operating a laser is typically less than 10 pounds per shot. That's awesome. It's cost efficient and deadly.
Exactly.
It's eco-friendly.
And I
like Rods of God.
Right. I misspoke earlier. I thought it was actually in use to take out some Houthi drones. Apparently it was just a test. But I thought it was actually used. I'm kind of disappointed now.
I'm going to see if I can find that real quick because I could have sworn I read that too. Let's see.
I have a picture here where they say it could be used against pretty much anything. Mm-hmm. They want to put them on boats.
Let's see here. Yeah, everything I'm finding like off the top of my fucking head or here on Google immediately is that there is something here from the 19th. Joaquin, it says, in first UK downs aerial drone with test shot, but it says that this was carried out in northern UK. It says I don't see anything about like Yemen or Houthi rebels, but this one says right here, in January 2024, US UK used warships, submarine launched Tomahawk missiles, and fighter jets to take out Houthi missiles. Yeah, the article doesn't mention the directed energy weapon. Unfortunately, that'd be pretty cool.
This is the thing the British released of like their idea of like what it could do. You could put it on like a boat, and it could take down the missile thing in the background. It could take down the plane, the drone, the other
I wonder
boats.
what Admiral Nelson would think about lasers on British warships. You know what I mean?
He'll probably be okay with it.
He'd be, yeah, dude. Like, fucking shit his pants.
I still wonder though if it's like if you have to like. Because it like everything said that I was reading real quick that it has to be like actually in view. So I'm worrying if like something as simple as cloud cover just stops that, or
that'd be pretty problematic at sea.
Yeah, or like mist or fog, like because I know lasers, pretty strong lasers don't care what's in the way. Like they go through pretty much anything. But like I'm assuming these are really really strong, and I'm willing to bet that some type of magnification power, if it's like a little off, it doesn't do enough and it's like not worth it. So like that's where I'm getting at. Like if it's going through mist, can it generate enough power to still be something to like ignite or mess it up? Or
here's the thing too, right? Is whatever is shooting that laser can move, but the laser itself isn't moving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you don't have a heat sensor laser,
Yeah.
or
and I know
fucking infrared.
Like laser weapons it's not like it just and it's done. It's like has to hit one spot for a little bit. Like I don't know if it's like seconds or minutes, but it's got to hit something for a little while to cause the heat.
Yeah. So that the line of sight thing it makes more sense when you consider like you're not fucking slinging lasers and they're curving around, and
it's not it's not Star Wars where it's like an actual
like the laser thing maybe
flying.
Right. Well, I mean, if it's like one continuous stream, right, like moving in the air, following something like back and forth, like now that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
When you think about what you could fuck up doing that, but I don't know, dude. People a lot smarter than me are figuring that shit out. That's for damn sure.
During World War II, the Navy was teaching dolphins to find mines. Today, we can put some freaking lasers on dolphin heads, not shark heads. Send them to.
Yeah. Dr. Evil is just wrong about the aquatic animal. Yeah. That's it.
Right? It's like manatees instead of sharks.
Manatees.
Like, why? Like, why?
Right? How ironic, dude. It would be. The wolves of the sea. So I was going to ask you, Sino, these rumors about Xi Jinping and cancer, and then also until you, man, I didn't even see this whole thing about him potentially being shot in the Politburo.
What?
How much truth is there to that in 2022? This is 2022, apparently.
He was
So
shot?
Supposedly.
yeah, the rumor was that I'll talk about the shooting first.
And then
The rumor
cancer.
was that Xi Jinping was shot during a Politburo meeting in September of 2022 by I don't know who. I guess by a disgruntled party member, PLA member.
Gotta be.
Did
It was a
did it
potential
happen?
coup, apparently.
I don't think it was. I don't think it happened. A
You don't
lot of
think so?
people, no. It's one of those things in which if that would have happened, there would have been signs. It would have been too big for even Xi to cover up, even for China to cover up. We would have seen actual stuff in motion at
Right.
that time. Now, regarding, and it was just rumor, and that was because someone overheard someone in Vietnam that says, "Oh, well, I mean, this is what happened."
Yeah.
Did it happen? Really? Maybe, possibly, but this is what happened. Now, the other one about him having cancer, I don't see that as being true because one, they get pretty good healthcare coverage. He gets pretty good healthcare. I mean, he goes through.
He probably gets the best healthcare in China.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He is.
I
He
am
most
China.
definitely is being right. Fix me.
Mhm.
But he's one of those people. I mean, he's part of the I mean, he's the leader of China. They've conduct a lot of tests weekly on to assess their health because not only him but other people within the Politburo and the Standing Committee, because they understand that they need to be alive. They need to be continue to be amongst the living to do that.
Well, I guess the pictures though are showing that he's lost a lot of weight recently.
Maybe he's just cutting back on carbs, dude.
Or
It's possibly. I mean,
cancer.
I mean, he doesn't strike me as someone who has cancer because I don't know if you've ever seen someone with cancer, especially as one as aggressive as pancreatic cancer. He doesn't really strike me as someone who has it because they're very sickly. They don't really look lively. I mean, I think it just to me, I think it was just someone spreading rumors. And even then, the rumor came from a nurse who was at the 301 hospital, the PLA's 301 hospital. And I'm just thinking, why is she being seen at that hospital? Because Joe High has his own hospital.
Yeah. It's like the rumors that always circulate with like Putin. They're like, he's dying.
Yeah.
They're like, he self-defecates, all this crazy stuff, whatever. Yeah. But
there was quite a bit of that after they invaded Ukraine, right at the beginning.
Yeah, but
it's because he's dying. It's because he's dying.
You just if you watch the Tucker Carlson interview, he looks perfectly fine and healthy. He could have maybe some underlying issue.
Dude, the guy ranted for 30 minutes about Russian history, bro. He's fine.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. Maybe he might have a cold every once in a while, or like a hangnail, but I'm pretty sure he's fine.
Right.
Yeah. No, but I agree. It's one of those things in which it's a rumor. Both are rumors. The first one about him being shot is it was funny. So they made a meme out of it. But it also goes to show Chinese people will make up these rumors.
Is it wishful thinking?
Not so much wishful thinking as the fact that they themselves don't know what's going on with the leaders. They have no clue.
I was gonna say, does China as a whole even get these rumors? I know it was the nurse at a hospital; she could start it, but does it even get to the rest of China?
It does. You'd be surprised how fast rumors spread through China.
Okay.
The censors try their best at canceling it or deleting them, but China finds a way. Chinese citizens have become very adept at finding alternative ways to access information.
Mm-hmm. As far as allies in China go, what are their biggest allies in the region? And when I say biggest, I mean the most effective at aiding China should something between them and the United States happen.
I don't think
North Korea. No.
Totally, bro.
I don't think right, be like, come help us with your Su-23s.
All three of them.
Right. All six T-34 85s.
Yeah. PS5 jets.
Probably
right,
flown with lodge. Like they don't even have like working.
No, dude, it's
like,
a GameCube controller. That's where the fucking dude for the Titanic thing got the idea, dude.
No, it's like a Logitech like joystick that like doesn't even like.
Amazon special, $12.99. I got it off Temu.
It's not.
That's where I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah.
God, it would be funnier.
All
if
their
it wasn't
like some of their planes
true.
are inverted. And they don't know which ones. They get in and they go to pull up and they just go right into the ground.
It's like one of those old Pac-Man games from Pizza Hut back in the day. You know what I mean? It's just like the rollerball. And you just like, yeah.
That would be so funny.
It would be. Would be surprised.
It's that little red knob that's like on some laptop like keyboards that controls the mouse in between like the N and like the H. That's what it is.
I don't think North Korea would actually intervene.
No.
Yeah.
They would sit that one out.
They'll sit it out. I mean, like with China, they would be more concerned with what Russia would be doing, or at least figuring out how they can return the favor regarding their assistance to them. Would they ask for like military assistance, such as personnel or equipment? I doubt that. Just because the fact that China has a lot of equipment already made and in storage, and unlike Russia, they actually do maintain it. Pakistan.
Okay. They'd be effective.
They would probably be coerced into doing like movements to make sure India doesn't.
Yeah.
Like their other side's relatively
Do you think
secure.
If something happens between us and China, like Taiwan specifically, that India would get in bed with the United States?
It's very interesting because with India, they've actually came out and said that the military would do a study. This was in January, or not January, but June of 2023, June or August of 2023. And they said we're going to do a study and study the various ways in which we can help both Taiwan and the United States in an event of a Chinese invasion.
India's gonna pull a Italy from like World War II.
They're gonna be from China to the U.S. or flip from U.S. to China.
Whoever's winning at the end is who they flip to. Like
they got a lot of fucking people in India. That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, but I could see them. I could see them being like not so much like pro China, but I could see them not being pro US at first. Like they're very like just there, and then depending on which way it flips or which way it's going is the one they get in bed with. That's what I would see India doing.
I think especially if Pakistan got in, India would immediately be looking at the U.S. for sure.
Yeah,
in a friendly way.
I can see that.
I don't think the United States would be willing to, or I don't think India would be willing to side with China. It would depend upon a lot of circumstances because you have to remember India and China don't like each other.
It would have to be like China's winning and about to be like the like global leader, like undoubtedly. That's the only way India would be like, okay, and they would just tolerate. Like it wouldn't be like like allies. It'd be like
Yeah.
hey,
Well, I'm glad you said that
we won't
because
nuke you today.
what's his name is Modi, right? Modi, the prime minister, whatever of India. He's very much wants India to be recognized as a global leader in any way, shape, or form, and takes like Indian nationalism, honestly, to that degree. Where I agree with you, Zach, that he doesn't want to be a vassal state essentially of China and wouldn't let that happen. And I don't think they would let that happen with the United States either. But I think that is best in their best interest, especially as far as like shipping lanes go around India and Sri Lanka, that it would be the best to have the US Navy essentially help guaranteeing some of that than rather kowtow to China and then lose access to some of those shipping lanes because that's some of the busiest waters in the world. I mean, you got to think of where that leads to. I mean, you go that way and you're going up through the Red Sea, you know what I mean, or hitting the east coast of Africa or whatever, you know. So there's a lot of different factors, but I think that India would side with the United States. What other like specific Indo-Pacific countries do you think like which one specifically would be the most beneficial to the Chinese?
I don't think there would be many countries siding with China, and I don't think China will want that because they have a very dim view on allies. Like
I feel like it interferes with their with just like their idea of China. Like for them
not
to
so much
be
that.
Like I guess you'll counterject this, but like what I was gonna say is like China's real big on like we are the civilization, we are the original, we are. So them getting help from anyone else is kind of like, well, you couldn't do it on your own. Are you really that great? And I wonder if like that would eat at them, if that makes sense. Like,
no, it does.
They have to do it themselves. Like they can't have someone else helping them.
That kind of goes into that's one level of it. They would view any help, especially with Taiwan, as people pointing out saying, "Oh, well, you needed help to
you couldn't get the
job
done.
The motherland.
How great are you really?"
Exactly, and then not only that, but you have to understand is that they have a rather negative view on alliances because the only true ally, and I don't know if I mentioned this on the last time I was here, is North Korea.
And it's not really that. It's more like them just keeping them in check for the sake of themselves. It's not a. If North Korea was get invaded by South Korea and steamrolled, China would, I think, like have a hard like. Do we do this again? Like, that's I don't see China taking the plunge, honestly. I just don't see it.
I don't either because they don't have an incentive to do that because they hate.
They did back then. They don't today. So it's like
totally different.
Yeah.
Well, more like what I'm thinking about, and maybe not necessarily like bodies, right? But strategic placement around the Pacific. You know, Palau, Micronesia, like these are places like Midway. You know, like these are places the United States uses advantageously. What places, you know, does China have enough favor in as far as like advanced placement of Chinese assets that, you know, are the most beneficial to them? Or do they have as many as the United States, or are they gaining ground? Like that kind of thing is what I'm thinking of, like strategic movement.
At the moment, they don't have any, and that kind of segues into what I was going to talk about the COFA states, because I know I made one post, but I also wrote up several articles that highlight this. One, they understand that the South Pacific, you know, Oceania, is very important to the United States' ability to project power.
Definitely.
They understand this. They know this. So for them, it's to not so much as control. They would like to control it, but realistically, they understand that will overstretch them, like what happened to Japan. So that's the reason why they would rather deny us the ability to do so. So that's the reason why you see them with trying to make a security agreement with the Solomon Islands, in which everyone, whenever that occurred in 2022, I believe, that kind of made everyone like, "Oh crap, really? Oh no!" But everyone understood the significance of a potentially hostile power in that area, specifically the Solomon Islands. And so they understand that. So that's the reason why Australia and New Zealand went there and asked them point blank, is this little security agreement a prelude to having troops on the ground, or Chinese troops on the ground? Now, the Solomon Islands leader said no. But a lot of the stuff that came out subsequently was kind of points to them potentially lying that China actually did have that. There were some agreements in there, or some verbiage in that agreement that allows China to
Didn't the
potentially either
Chinese
deploy
open
troops.
at least one of those Chinese police stations there in the Solomon Islands as well, and they were training Solomon. I'm not sure what Solomonese, if it's Solomonese or what they call themselves, but training them on police tactics and shit.
No, they didn't. They didn't open one up.
Okay.
It's more along the lines of integrating with the Australians, I believe, and New
Okay.
Zealanders.
Okay.
So it's along those lines. But they have done training with the Royal Solomon Islands Police Force.
Okay, that's maybe what I was
And
thinking of.
yeah, and then not only that, but then you see in the COFA states where the United States Congress inability to actually pass the renewal for the COFA.
Can you expand on that a little bit for the layman listening who may not understand what that means?
Yeah, so for the COFA, it's the Compact of Free Association. Essentially, back in the 80s, during the Reagan administration, the United States allowed Palau, Micronesia, Federated States of Micronesia, and also the Marshall Islands to vote whether or not they want to vote upon the future. Whether it be they want to be a U.S. state, a U.S. territory, Commonwealth, or a COFA. All three chose the COFA route. And so what that meant was that the United States will provide you with economic assistance. We essentially cover their budget every year, or a significant portion of their budget. And in return for that, we get exclusive military rights to build and maintain infrastructure on Palau and all those three islands, or all those three countries. Now, so that enabled us to create the Konagwai atoll in the Marshall Islands, I believe. Not only that, but then Palau allows us to build radars. They're allowing us to build a new radar site to track threats over horizon radar. Not only that, but they're going to allow us to potentially station a PAC-3 battery there to protect the radar. And so the COFA, but the COFA has been running into issues with the Congress passing it, because right now that's all that's preventing it. And it's realistically due to the Republicans wanting anything to do with foreign policy decisions. If we're giving money away to a foreign power, that's what these are. That's what they are.
Yeah.
they need to have a corresponding security measure for the border, in which I find funny that the Republicans say that because, essentially, like in the post that I made, that I made last night, I believe the president of Palau and the president of the Marshall Islands highlighted the fact that because of this agreement, you are you border the United States border extends into the Western Pacific.
Right.
We If they would have actually, if Palau, to give the listeners a more of a solid understanding of where these islands are located, if these three islands were to have chosen statehood or territory like Guam or Puerto Rico or Hawaii, our back our border, international border, would be close, if not against, the Philippines in the case of
Okay.
Palau. And so for us to drag our heels and actually passing it allows China to go in and try to increase its influence through its influence operations,
Okay.
through people who don't want us there for whatever reason, or people who took bribes from Chinese nationals in the case of the Marshall Islands.
Right.
And so realistically, if we were to lose those islands in the event of a conflict with China over Taiwan, or just, two big boys on the block have to duke it out sometime, we would literally have to go in and redo a lot of those campaigns we fought in during World War II.
Right.
Because China, that's one of the things that China doesn't would like to do. They would like to occupy those, like to build sites. As a matter of fact, they've actually tried to, part of the agreement, that the failed agreement they tried to sign with the 10 Southeast, not Southeast, but South Pacific island nations. They, a part of that agreement, they gave them a list of locations where they will want to build a facility at, whether it be an airbase or a naval station. Well, those sites were essentially copy and pasted from old World War II U.S. Allied locations that were used in World War II during the Pacific theater. So they understand the strategic importance of those islands. Now, would they want to do that? Of course, they would love to do that. But they would rather? But when you measure it up against realistic expectations, a lot of those island populations hate the Chinese because Chinese people they don't treat the foreigners in the best way.
Well, it's like that video that just came out of those Chinese citizens in the UK, and they told that dude playing the piano to stop. Do you remember seeing that? Like, they're in somebody else's country and like, oh, I'm Chinese, you can't touch me, or you can't do this, you must stop because this is Chinese media filming behind you. Like, fuck off, this is the UK. But does the Chinese even have the capability to hold those positions anyway, even if they wanted to, and deter the US specifically?
No, they don't. I mean, that's the reason why I said that China would like to have that capability, but they realistically would be okay with us having to go in and prevent us from using them.
Okay, got you. For everybody watching, Zach is dipping out, but Joaquin and I are going to continue the conversation while we're here. So, Yeah, no, the as far as the strategic capabilities and stuff like that go, the United States and the Pacific, I do feel like the United States 100% maintains the advantage, just purely because of our blue water navy and the fact that the Chinese navy, for the most part, is sort of a coastal defense force. Would that be an accurate way of saying that?
Yes, for somewhat.
Okay.
They don't really like to. They're able to project power,
Hmm.
but you have to understand what it takes for them to project that power.
Okay.
They would have to literally get a supply ship, load it up with as many provisions as it can, and that supply ship would have to sell with it.
Hmm.
Now, are they able to have the same? Are they able to get resupplied at most ports?
Hmm.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Myanmar, Kuwait, Oman, of course, but
Hmm.
not on the same scale as we can, because the
Got you.
United States Navy can go into any port and we'll be certain to have the infrastructure within place within uh in like 72 hours before that, or not 72 hours, but maybe like a week or like a couple of weeks before the port visit, for that ship to be resupplied.
Okay. So essentially, it's a sustainability thing for the most part, as far as that goes.
Hmm. Yeah. So for them, for the Chinese, they understand that they don't realistically have a blue water navy, or at least on the same level as the United States. Do they want one? Of course.
Hmm. Yeah.
But realistically, they're building up ships. Yes, they're building up ships. They're building these ships up. My thing about that is, do they have enough people to man them and operate them? Not really.
Got you.
Because that was another thing that kind of threw a monkey wrench into the whole plan, is the fact that they are now trying to institute a lot of these new advanced weapon systems and ships
Hmm.
that require people who are not country bumpkins, if you will, or
Okay.
they need people with educations
Hmm.
more than a ninth or 10th grade level.
So that's an actual problem then in China. Is it definitely the image that they project and the one that the West projects is definitely not that there's a lack of skill, I guess, in China.
There's not a lack of skill. There's more. Well, there is a lack of skill. It's more along the lines of, can they attract it?
Okay.
And can they keep it? I mean, that was a lot of the major issues that go on with recruitment. Not only recruitment, but
Hmm.
as you may know, staying in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so it's one thing to be able to recruit numbers.
Hmm.
It's not some, but being able to keep them is another thing. And China's failing in both regards. We've seen this in both the PLA announcements and them wanting opening up recruitment standards, um, uh, opening up recruitment criteria. Um, Now they're making a push to actually opening up the aircraft carrier borne jet fighter training to women, which previously was
Oh no
not
shit.
open to.
Okay.
Hmm. And so not only that, but they made an effort to make it to where um, the same pipeline is open to people who I believe are older than the criteria itself,
Oh shit.
than the current criteria. So,
That's interesting because the United States is having similar issues and doing similar things.
well, I mean, I would say this, and whenever people say this about the criteria and stuff like that,
Hmm.
the crisis. It's fundamentally different than China's issue. Is fundamentally different than what the United States and the rest of the world is facing. Because one, it's a temporary crisis.
Okay.
Because you got to remember, we faced a crisis like this in the 70s, and we've not only survived it, the U.S. military survived it, but it regained its strength in the 80s.
Definitely.
Now,
that Reagan budget.
So, exactly. Now, regarding China, you may not see that because one, they don't know, well, because one, they may not have enough people to man or with the skills necessary to man those vessels.
Okay.
It's very much them trying to gain enough bodies to fill out those ships. And it's so bad that they can't even have they have trouble finding commanders for them.
The more I learn about them, the more I realize the Chinese are just really bad at logistics.
It's funny. Well, not so much as bad as logistics. They're still trying to learn how to conduct new age logistics. Now, if we're talking about Maoist era tactics, them operating along the lines of a old fashioned people's war, like what Mao wanted, they would have no problem with the logistics. Matter of fact, that was one of their strongest suits. You can kind of argue that it's not really now, at least in most subfields. Some fields you see them doing okay. Some fields they know how to do it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're still trying to figure out like how to do logistics in the 21st century. Or akin
last
to
time
us,
we right. Last time we talked, one of the things we discussed was the lack of an NCO corps in the Chinese military. And ironically, I did see some other people talking about that. And then the state media in China also kind of addressed that and said that they are adopting or trying to adopt more of that Western style of military leadership. Is that something you think is even attainable for them with the sort of control the CCP has?
No, and it's funny that it's a lot of those news agencies that reported on it. It sounded very familiar.
Yeah,
needless to say. And the Chinese and the PLA coming out and saying that we're going to reconstruct. We're placing more of an emphasis on NCO Corps. It's like
right.
You did this back in the mid 2010s. What more emphasis do you need?
Yeah.
Like, what are you failing at? And so this is another thing that I've seen or I've witnessed is the fact that they're still trying to figure out. This answers your question about like they're trying to gain an NCO or Western Star NCO Corps, and can they? The reason why they've failed and they will continue to fail, even though they're trying to re-emphasize or re-engage on how to make one, is the fact that the party has to be in absolute control. And I know I said this before when I was last on here. That's the overwhelming issue. They don't want to export their NCO Corps to other countries. They don't care for that. They know that's not the driving issue for this. They know that to become a better military, they need an NCO Corps. That was further compounded by the losses they've seen in Ukraine when you have captains, colonels going down to the tactical level and leading men.
Yeah.
You don't ever see that. Exactly. And so one of the things about... Go ahead.
I was going to ask, is there a lot of pay for play in the Chinese officer ranks?
Not so much anymore.
Okay.
It still is because because no matter how much she tries to do or try to drive away corruption, the PLA it still exists. It just became more transparent, or people who are emboldened to him
Mm-hmm.
or sycophants to him,
Mm-hmm.
they're able to get away with it effectively.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it almost just seems like, in his attempt to have ultimate control, Xi Jinping doesn't have as much control as he thinks he does, essentially.
That's true. I mean, you kind of see that with the ongoing rocket force or the
I was going to
purge.
ask you about
Gonna
that. I
go.
want to hear your perspective, because we got the perspective from somebody else, but I kind of want to hear what your thoughts on that as well are.
I think regarding I think regarding the purge, a lot of people are conflating it towards corruption, in which I don't think it's corruption totally explains it.
Yeah.
I just it doesn't explain it, because if it was so, if the PLA, the Rocket Force, was so corrupt, then why are only certain officers being targeted? Not only that,
Mm-hmm.
but why, if you're going to target the the product testing um, uh, section of the PLA, why hasn't she went after Zhang Yusha? He's still
Okay.
in power. He's still there, and he and Lee actually, former defense minister Lee replaced him.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, Lee followed him through the same and the two previous positions. So why is he still around? Now, granted, the counter argument is that, oh well, because he has a lot of combat experience. He's
Mm-hmm.
like one of a dozen maybe PLA officers who have combat experience, who've seen combat.
Okay.
That doesn't really explain it, because one, yes, combat experience is important, but
Mm-hmm.
he's seen combat during the Sino-Vietnamese War,
Okay.
so he can
A long time ago.
have. Yeah, it's one of those things in which it's kind of valid if you're trying to make a surface level argument, but when you dig deeper, is his combat experience really matter?
Right. It's like
And
trying to say the
no
combat
further.
experience of a Vietnam vet matters as much as a vet from, that was fighting in the mountains of Afghanistan. It's two different styles of warfare, and on service levels you can find parallels, but is just massive, massive differences for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, from my perspective, I don't think it's about corruption more so as a power struggle. Because whenever you did see, but you had to remember the people who were first taken out,
Mm-hmm.
or the first people who were purged. They
Okay.
weren't the defense ministry under Lee. They weren't under the Joint Logistics Force or the Strategic Support Force. It was under the Rocket Force, in which the Rocket Force has always been known as the Princeling Corps,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where the Red Princelings, like she, will go to serve out their time,
Mm-hmm.
because they know realistically it will be a cakewalk.
Yeah.
There would be the least likely service, or least likely service to actually see combat,
Right.
and all they would have to do, if the thing, if it does happen, is turn a key or flip a
Yeah.
switch.
Right. Right. Right.
Exactly. And so for them, that's why you've seen a lot of concentrated um, power, but then also power bases
Mm-hmm.
originate and congregate right there within there. And so that's the reason why she replaced not only the political commissar, but the commanding general of the PLA, of the Rocket
Mm-hmm.
Force, with a navy general and an army general. And
Okay.
people forget that is these are not they didn't climb up the ranks of the PLA. They didn't climb up the ranks in the Second Artillery Corps, the Rocket Force's predecessor.
Mm-hmm.
she actually got them from two different branches and said, "You are now Rocket First commanders, or Rocket. You now lead the Rocket First, and you're now the commissar of the Rocket First."
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because we look back at their history, at least what's available on um, the Chinese internet,
Mm-hmm.
is that they knew Xi from Fujian province.
Got you.
Mm-hmm.
So nepotism,
And so
essentially.
not so much nepotism, it's more along the lines that she knows that he can trust them
Okay.
to get the Rocket First into fighting shape, or to be able to command the order, to be able to do the orders if given.
Mm-hmm. So it'd be safe to say, essentially, that there was a loss of confidence in the former commander's ability to command should they actually go to war with the United States over Taiwan.
I don't think it would be a loss of capability. More so, she just didn't trust them enough to carry out the orders when
Got you.
necessary.
Okay.
Now, it could be seen as a loss of confidence. You can view it as a loss of confidence, but you also have to understand in the context of the Rocket Force was, again, kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
And Xi Jinping not only elevated it, but kind of but put his cronies in charge, or put people who emboldened to him in charge.
Okay.
And so, in a weird way, going back to what you said earlier, that China, she wants to control everything. It makes him lose. It makes him makes him lose control.
Right.
This is kind of an example of that, because he tried to exert control over the PLA Rocket Force by getting someone who he thought he could trust into those positions of power. Now you kind of see it backfiring them spectacularly.
One of the last questions I want to ask you before we wrap up is it's that old adage that, like, a cornered dog is the most dangerous, and that all of the economic issues that the Chinese are having, the looming U.S. elections, where seemingly a more competent person will become the president of the United States, potentially, who knows? Do you think that China is running out of time to take advantage of trying to take over Taiwan? And if so, does that make them more dangerous and willing to throw caution to the wind to get it done?
I don't think it will, because you have to understand is that the overlying factor that Xi Jinping will likely judge whether or not they do an invasion is if the PLA is ready to do one. Now,
Okay.
a lot of people have said that, oh, well, I mean, Xi Jinping said, by 2027 to be ready to take one out, or to be able to conduct an invasion of Taiwan. That means 2027. No, it does not. It means the PLA should have the necessary capabilities to conduct one. However, it kind of goes back to what I believe you said, that it is, on the surface, they say something that the PLA looks good, or is able to do it on or on the surface, but when you get down to it, not so much. This is the same context.
Okay.
That the PLA is able to do. The PLA will not be able to do an invasion by 2027 because of logistics.
Yeah.
They don't have enough. They don't have the ability to generate enough amphibious lift capabilities to move the troops earmarked for the invasion, let alone to maintain a constant stream of reinforcements.
Yeah.
That's even if they try to include civilian roll-on, roll-off ships. They've actually the U.S. Naval Institute came out with 2 articles saying that, hey, they're trying to look into open deck, how to utilize open deck shipping
Oh wow.
to actually increase this number.
Okay.
Now, will that work? Will that actually enable them to invade Taiwan by 2027? No. As a matter of fact, they've actually pointed that out. They made it very poignant in the two pieces they wrote, that China does not have the amphibious lift capability to
Mhm.
conduct one until 2030 or later.
Okay. Gives the U.S. quite a bit of time if we can pull our heads out of our asses, for sure.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that, like, and that's if and again, it's going back to, is the risk worth it? And I
Mhm.
think before we ever and I think before we ever discuss that, I know you brought up the economy. China would have to the Chinese economy would have to get way worse
Okay.
before Xi Jinping actually asks himself this question:
Mhm.
Can we invade Taiwan? Should we invade Taiwan? Does that mean what does that mean? I think we would have to see a wholesale collapse. Excuse me,
Mhm.
a wholesale collapse of the economy.
Yeah.
And one of the Hail Mary graces or those that they would have to do is an invasion of Taiwan
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
gain people's love back.
Mhm. Yeah. Drive some sort of economic boom from the military aspect for sure. Um, one of the this I think I'll keep this to the last question and we can wrap up. But where do you think the United States has done the best at in sort of countering what China is trying to do in the Pacific?
I think it would be our ability to understand our allies matter.
Hmm. That's
Now,
a good answer.
granted, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things in which a lot of people think, oh, well, the United States is making these missile systems, remember the Marine Corps FD 2030. That means nothing
Hmm.
if we don't have our allies to be able to help out.
Hmm.
In the case of Japan,
Yeah.
I'll use Japan as a quick reference, and maybe I'll show you. But
Awesome.
with
Yeah. Yeah.
with Japan pivoting back to be an offensive capability and actually pivoting towards the Southwest Islands, Okinawa,
Hmm. Hmm.
that gives us a lot of capabilities that we would have never had unless Abai, for all its flaws, would have not deemed necessary, and laying the
Hmm.
groundwork for not only that to come out, but also the Quad as well.
Okay.
And so realistically, those two aspects of Japanese um, defense planning are due to Abai,
Mm.
and that enables the Marine Corps, especially, to work in conjunction with the Japanese to destroy a lot of those Chinese transports, or at least
Hmm.
it complicate planning.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, with
Hmm.
Australia is quickly becoming our dear friend in the Pacific, like the UK, because we understand that because we understand that Australia will become the
Hmm.
bastion of democracy as it was in the World War II, but more so during a conflict with China,
Hmm.
because we are going to be able to store so much stuff there and be able
Hmm.
to project power from there
Yeah.
for us to be able to fight to push back against China.
Yeah. Do you feel, I've seen this a few times, but do you feel like there's any sort of loyalty issue with New Zealand?
Yes, but not in a context on which I'm thinking of,
Yeah.
which I'm thinking you're thinking of.
Yeah. Chinese influence
There, will-
specifically.
yeah, it's that does play a part in that, and we actually have found a lot of senior Kiwi politicians
Mm-hmm.
having a little too close with CCP elements in New Zealand, but they themselves, but with New Zealand, especially under the current administration or the
Mm-hmm.
government, they understand that they need to pick a side.
Okay.
And them dilly-dallying, for lack of a better term, and not being able to and paying the least amount in terms of defense budgets.
Hmm.
It's not even 1% of their GDP.
Yeah. Is there
The New
like,
Zealand.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say the New Zealand Defense Force. It's kind of sad, really.
Yeah. It's like what's it? I'm trying to remember who it was. Maybe it was like Otto von Bismarck made the joke that if the British Army landed on mainland Europe, he'd send the police force and have them arrested because they're so small that all you needed was the police and not the might of the German army. Um, yeah, but um, the issue there, like with New Zealand, like I do you think that they're close enough, essentially, with Australia that any sort of worry about it wouldn't really is like kind of unfounded?
I think right now, it previously there was some
Mm-hmm.
worry, especially
Mm-hmm.
regarding some of the policies they made.
Yeah.
But now you kind of see them wanting to sign on to AUKUS Stage 2.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, not the nuclear components,
Yeah, I saw
but
that.
yeah. And so you have that. And so I think that goes a long way in assuaging the concerns of not only New Zealand, not only Australia, but also the United States concern about
Mm-hmm.
their alignment,
Yeah,
because realistically they can't stay neutral.
no doubt.
Um, no, they
They're
can't.
too geographically intertwined for to stay neutral for sure.
Exactly. And a lot of people worried that New Zealand would go pivot towards China
Mm-hmm.
at certain points.
That'd be really odd.
It would be. And it was mainly due to economic.
Mm-hmm.
But now you see the New Zealanders saying that we need to sign on to AUKUS because we need to actually come out and say that we needed to prepare the defense force to fight against China.
Mm-hmm. That's good to
They
know.
never say that.
Mm-hmm.
They will never say that.
Well, okay.
But I think
The
now
underlying,
they will.
got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Joaquin, dude, I really, really appreciate you coming on and talking to us again. It's always a pleasure. I know I really would like to get you and David Zhang on together and let you guys kind of talk about some things. It would be pretty cool. Um, but I want you to, yeah, dude, plug yourself, plug Atlas so people know where to find you at.
Yeah, so you can find me on Atlas. Specifically, I write a ton of articles, at least 1 to 2 per day on Atlas, and not only about China, but regarding pretty much anything that has to do with the Indo-Pacific. Um, I'm also on Instagram, which I do most of my stuff, but I'm also on Twitter, where I
Mm-hmm.
also do a lot of retweets and give out my thoughts, my random thoughts.
Are you Sino
Also
Talk
have a
on
Discord.
Twitter too?
Yes, it's the same thing as my
Okay. Okay.
it's a handle right now. Sino
Okay.
Talk with parentheses Joaquin Camarena.
Okay.
Um, Also have a Discord as well, in
Hmm.
which if you so you can join, in which that has a lot of people talking and everything like that, whether it be um, Vietnam, China, New Zealand, anything under the sun.
Okay. I might hit that up. Not even playing. That's interested. Cool, man. Honestly, man, I really appreciate you coming on. I know Zach does too, but he had to dip out real quick. But the episode obviously drops here next Friday, and I'll make sure to put your links and everything like that in the show notes and where people can find you and all the great info you put out, man. But genuinely appreciate you coming on and talking to us again.
No, man, thank you for having me on. And I know we've kind of went for a long time, actually, like 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Believe it or
Wow.
not, it's actually a little shorter than our last conversation. Our last one pushed over 3 hours.
Really?
Yeah, we were just having that good of a time, bro. That's what it was.
I bet. Yeah, I remember that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, dude, it's always good talking to you because you have such good information, which is why I like having you on. And no, asking you, you just have a breadth of knowledge, which is super cool. So, I think next time when I have you on, I'm gonna preface the episode and then try to see if anybody in the audience has questions as well, and try to hit those up and get some specific insights that people that are curious want to know as well too. So that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to do that. Yeah, and next time you
Yeah,
have me on, I mean, you can. Yeah, I mean that, and like have me on whenever if David Jang wants to ever agrees and wants to have me on, or whenever he
yeah,
comes on, we could talk and stuff like that.
that would be a pretty cool live on like Rumble. All of us on there like that. That would be pretty cool, I think.
Yeah,
But all right, brother. I appreciate you, man. And we'll get out of here and hopefully everybody enjoys the info. I know I sure did, man.
yeah, I hope so too, my man. It was good coming back on, and thanks for having me. Thank you and Zach for having me.
Absolutely, dude. All right, guys, we'll wrap this episode of I Came with Fire podcast up. You know where to find us on Rumble, Google Podcasts, soon to be YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and our RSS feed as well. So, all right, y'all, have a good night.